Alright guys, today we're doing an iPad mini screen repair. So to find out which iPad you're going to fix, you're going to want to turn it over on the back. And there's going to be a 4-digit number that starts with the letter A. On this one it's an A1489, and if you look that up, that is an iPad mini 2. So that way you know what screen to order. And remember that number, the A1489, because it'll come in handy when ordering the screen. We're just kind of looking over the screen, see what the damage is. Looks like it happened in the top and went all the way across the screen, so it's affecting the touch on one side of the screen. Here's a few tools you're going to need. A small Phillips screwdriver. All these tools I'll link in the description. Anti-static tweezers. This is an ISESAMO tool, but just some kind of pry tool. A spudger. This is pretty important in this iPad repair. And then something to cut with. You don't have to have scissors. You can use a razor, but you're going to need something to cut with. And then a heat gun. You can use a hairdryer, but you're going to save a lot of time if you use a heat gun. A hairdryer is just very slow. Double-sided tape. You're going to want to get some of this. Like I said, I'll leave a link in the description. And then here is the screen I ordered. This screen costs about $13, $14. So we just want to make sure that it lines up exactly like the one that we're putting it on. And you want to be able to see where that cable is. We notice this cable is on the bottom right corner. So we know that when we're repairing the screen to be careful down there on the bottom right. So the first thing you want to do is turn your iPad off. And then you want to start with your heat gun and go around the edges. And you want to get it fairly hot, but not too hot. And you want to make sure that you're putting the heat on the edges of the corners, not on the LCD itself. And once it feels pretty warm to the touch, you're going to go in with your pry tool or ISESAMO tool. And you're going to go around the edges and you're going to start prying. I always start prying from the farthest point away from that cable. That cable's in the bottom right corner. So we want to start on the opposite side and kind of finish at that cable, if you will. So on this iPad, you're going to fold on the way down. And what I like to do here is you can take a razor, or I have scissors, and you're going to go ahead and cut this digitizer off. We don't need it anymore. It's just going to be in the way. And usually the screen doesn't come off this easy. Usually there's shards of glass, so I like to get it out of the way so you don't cut yourself or anything. You're going to remove those 4 screws that were highlighted in red. You're going to use a Phillips screwdriver, just a small Phillips screwdriver. You can get these just about, most stores carry this size Phillips screwdriver, so you don't got to order anything special, but once again, I will leave a link in the description. And I'm basically laying them down the exact same way they came out. As you can tell, I put that one on the left, that one on the right. This one's going to be on the top right, so I'm going to put it close up there to the top. This just makes it super easy when you're putting the phone back together. Sorry, not the phone, but the iPad. It's just a lot easier. Here's the spudger, and this is where it comes in super handy. So you want to get behind the screen, you want to pull it very gently, and that's the key to this whole repair, is go slow, steady, and just take your time. Don't rush anything. Sometimes on the sides there'll be pieces of glass. You want to make sure you get all that off. Sometimes the screen will stick on the sides of those glass. So you want to make sure there's nothing hindering this screen popping up. When the screen pops up, you want to pull it up about 90 degrees, and sometimes you'll get tension on the screen, and down here at the bottom, the tension is caused by this tape. So if you can remove this tape and get it out of the way, sometimes it's a little bit tough. I've cut it out with scissors before as well. You're not going to damage anything. It's just tape down there. But make sure you don't accidentally cut that cable on the right-hand side. Once you do that, and you can lift that screen up 90 degrees, you're going to want to take your Phillips screwdriver and you're going to take out all these screws on this heat shield. Now, all these screws are the exact same size, so it doesn't matter if you get them mixed up or whatever. But you do want to, like I said, this video is sped up, so you do want to slow it down, take your time, and get this done right so you don't got to go back and do it. There was one screw I missed. They're tiny. So I'm going to get that one out and go ahead and pry off this heat shield. Sometimes it's a little bit tough. You can get your tweezers under there or that spudger. help you pop it out. Now that we have that off, we're going to take this other little shield down here that's holding these cables down. It's holding your battery, your digitizer, and your LCD. And we're going to take these 3 screws off. And you want to take these 3 screws off just like we've done this whole iPad repair so far. And you want to make sure you're laying them down on your sheet of paper the exact same way that they're coming out. And you don't got to draw a diagram or anything on the piece of paper, but I mean, if you want to, that's fine. I've done it before. It does make putting this iPad back a lot easier. Once all that's off, you want to make sure you pull off the power cable first to the battery. Then we're going to go ahead and detach this LCD. This LCD costs about $50. So if we damage it, it's not too bad, but it's still $50 that you could save if you get this off correctly. Now the last digitizer cable, we're going to go ahead and pull it off, and you're going to pull it off slowly. And then once you get it off slowly, you can go ahead and rip it off because it was stuck down with some adhesive. But you want to make sure when you're pulling it off that prong that you pull it off slowly. Next, you want to make sure that all of your glass from the sides is taken off. There's no extra adhesive. There's no screws, nothing laying around. And then we're going to start laying down our tape, but you got to make sure that all the glass is taken off and everything is removed so there's nothing in the way that could damage the iPad when you lay it down. Also, be careful of these corners. Sometimes they get damaged when people drop the iPads. So when you put a new iPad screen on there, the corners aren't going to go down as well. Don't try to force the corners. But all I'm doing right now is I'm just taking this tape and I'm putting it everywhere that I could feel that it was sticky. So if there was adhesive there before, that's what you want to do with this tape. You want to put it all over this iPad. Watch the holes. Don't cover any holes. Like I said, if you feel that there was adhesive there before, that's what you want to do. You want to put adhesive there. And I'm going to cut this tape quite a few times. Like I said, you can slow this video down. You can stop it. This video is sped up. I think this whole process took me about 45 minutes. But an hour is pretty common. But I'm just putting all this adhesive all the way around as much as I can. I want it to get a good firm hold. And whenever you put the screen on, it usually has some adhesive on there as well. And you can always just use the screen, but I've always used tape. It just holds down a lot better. I've used the screen, it seemed to just come off a lot easier. Once the tape is down, you're going to take your spudger or your tweezers, and you're just going to push down on that tape very hard to make sure it's got a good firm grip on the frame. Now that you have your tape down, let's go ahead and test it. Let's make sure that everything is going to function properly. So I'm going to put the digitizer on here, and now I'm going to connect the LCD. Once that's done, I'm going to hook up the battery. And then I'm just going to lay this on there and just see if everything's working okay. We don't want to put it back together and something not work, then you got to do it all over again. Test the home button, move the screen around, open an app, go back in. If you can't open the apps or the iPad's locked, you can always just play on the home screen, the 1, 2, 3, 4 on the passcode, and if the numbers are touching good, you're probably fine. So I propped this up on the edge here. It just makes it easier while that's up there, kind of like at a 90-degree angle. And I'm basically going to do everything I just did, just in reverse order. So we're going to put that shield on. We're going to put these 3 screws on. There is 3 screws. I believe they all are 3 different sizes. So we want to make sure that we put them back in the same spot they came out. That's why it's kind of important when you're taking them out that you lay them the way that they came out. Just makes it easier for you, and you don't get any kind of long screw damage or something doesn't fit right. Now we're going to put this heat shield on. This shield protects the LCD if the battery was to explode or get too hot. It protects the LCD. When you're taking the screen off, I kind of forgot to mention at the very bottom, make sure that you pull it off very slowly. Sometimes you can pull off the Bluetooth Wi-Fi connection at the bottom. So like I said, you just want to make sure that you use your heat gun, heat up the sides, and take your time. That's the most important thing. Like, you just want to take your time. This video is sped up, so it does go by pretty quick, but make sure you take your time. The LCD, like I said, is about 50 bucks, so if you damage it, it's going to cost you a little bit. Like I said, not too bad, but still, you could save that money. And then the digitizer is about $14, $15. So if you just fix the digitizer, which is all this repair really is, I mean, you can fix this iPad for $15. And a good little screwdriver kit will cost you about $10. And then a good heat gun. This heat gun I have right here, I believe, is $20. So not too bad, not too bad at all. Like I said, all I'm doing is finishing up these last screws, screwing them in, making sure I got a good connection, nothing's loose. We're going to go ahead and fold down the LCD. And like I said, remember this one is the $50 LCD, so make sure that when you're pushing down the corners, the sides, you want to be very careful. Make sure that there's nothing loose. If you missed a screw and it's popped loose and it's laying on that heat shield, and you're pushing down right here and you're like, oh, this is not pushing down, you push down a little too hard, you could probably damage the LCD on a little piece of screw. So make sure that all that goes down good. And then once again, start putting your screws back in. 2 of these screws are longer than the other ones, so you want to make sure that wherever you pulled it out of, you put it back in. That's why it's important to make sure you lay your screws out correctly. I know I've mentioned that a couple times, but it's just important. Slow and steady. I got this little brush. It actually goes on a glasses case, but it is pretty awesome. If you get your fingerprints on the screen, you can take a microfiber cloth and just kind of go in a circular motion on there, and it usually gets rid of them pretty easy. Not a lot of pressure, just light pressure. Now I'm taking all the adhesive tape off. Got all the adhesive tape off, and now I'm going to take the adhesive tape off of the screen. Always on the bottom of these screens, it's always kind of tricky right here when you have to go under that cable, so just go around the other side. And you'll kind of see what I mean once you get the screen. And always remember that piece of plastic right there. There's a piece of plastic that covers the screen on the inside. I've put them down before and like, man, it's kind of foggy, and didn't realize that pulled off. And when you're laying this screen down, you want to make sure that that camera hole lines up with the camera. I've had it where it's off before and everything on the iPad works fine, but when you go to use that camera, it's blocked by the screen. So make sure that the camera hole at the very top is lined up, and you should be able to look down straight into it and see the camera. Go ahead and start pushing down on the sides. Nothing too hard, just firm all the way around, and then turn your iPad on and make sure that everything is working correctly. Test your home button, open apps, close apps. You can turn up the volume. Do whatever you want to do to make sure that it's functioning properly. This one's functioning really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around the sides, press it around firmly, and that's it. Thanks for watching, guys.